And the other goat came up to the first goat and said, "What is it like?" And the first goat said, "The book was better." I am not so sure. I really am not so sure that the book was better, but they are two different things altogether, celluloid and paper. In any case, Eberhard, along with a friend and a very gifted photographer, cinematographer and director by the name of Amit Datta, decided to make my book the basis of a study of the painter Nain-Sook. To track the life of a painter in the midst of a vast area of ignorance and darkness as far as facts are concerned is not the easiest thing in the world. Very often in my mind, the image that rises is, if you have been to Haridwar, that is where the Ganga debouches from the mountains into the plains, and is one of the most sacred cities of India. If you are on the bank of the river Ganga, every evening thousands of people are assembled there, and they release on the waters little platters of leaves on which there are some flowers and a lamp, the tribute to the river. And when they release them on the edge of the water is quiet, and then slowly there are thousands of these are being released on the waters, and it start moving out. And when the current takes over, then you have your own platter of leaves, you have your own light, and you can keep an eye on that. But as the current takes over, it begins to keel and pitch and tip and turn. And then it starts moving ever more swiftly and joins thousands of other lights, and you cannot keep track of it anymore. To keep track of an individual painter in the context of India is something like keeping an eye firmly trained on that platter of leaves that you have left on the waters. It's a difficult task, very, very difficult. If I have been able to put together the life of Nain-Sook to the extent that I could, and if I have been able to put the number of painted sketches, drawings by Nain-Sook together, I have chanced my arm. I'm not absolutely sure that I'm right all the time. But Eberhard Fischer decided to take up this challenge and presenting this in a filmic form. And he reconstructed, so to speak, not only the life of Nain-Sook, but also the manner in which he worked. Nain-Sook, the name is interesting, means the eye's delight, a good name for a painter. Nain-Sook worked for a very, very small patron, a person by the name of Balwant Singh, whom we'll see in the film. Balwant Singh was not even a legitimate ruler of that particular state. He probably was a pretender, had very little means at his disposal, but between him and his painter, they created a magnificent world, a dream world as it were, simple on the one hand and extremely complex on the other. I'll tell you a little bit about the manner in which Eberhard, with great imagination, picked on a little article that I wrote, not an article, a fantasy you might say, which talked about the environment in which Nain-Sook lived. We have no documentary evidence. I was only visualizing, fantasizing, if you like. I was in Zurich at that particular time. I had an eye ailment. I was operated upon. And there I lay on my hospital bed, eyes bandaged, nothing else to do. So I took up a dictaphone and started dictating some leaves from the fictional diary of Nain-Sook. Nain-Sook was literate, but I don't think he ever wrote a diary. It's a fictional diary that I was creating. Last few days when he was with his patron, and there are some details, intimate details of the kind of society he was part of and things like this and so on. And Eberhard seems to have picked up those fictional leaves from the diary of a painter. and made that into a basis of this particular film. It's an act of imagination, like mine was. But it is an act filled with faith, a belief in the fact that this is the way it could have happened, it might have happened. And therefore, there is a great deal of, as I said, observation balanced with imagination. Observation takes forefront sometimes, and imagination goes into the background, and the other way, it keeps on happening. I have to add that nearly all that you will see, there are 3 or 4 different versions of the film. The longest is more than an hour and a quarter. The one that you're going to see probably only lasts 28 minutes, but you'll get a flavor of the place. Eberhard went to every single place, along with the director and the cinematographer and the whole range of people who work on this particular film, and for really authentic landscapes he was able to capture. Jasrota, which is completely in ruins, just not very far from this town of Jammu. Jasrota is some place where not man or animal sort of enters anymore, at the top of a hill. And he went there, he photographed the ruins of that particular place, and it is in the midst of those ruins that he places his characters, his figures, and we see a period characters come to life like nothing else. It is, as I said, an act of courage that you are going to see. It may have been an act of imagination on my part, but on the part of Eberhard, to put together this particular film is an act of courage and of conviction. I only have to add one little thing, because the time is breathing down our necks, and that is this. Nain Suk has left very, very little record of himself. But one record that I chanced upon, not chanced upon, I worked towards, you might say, is worth recalling, because that is the scene with which the film begins. I was at Haridwar, looking at the records of the priests who keep records of pilgrims who come to Haridwar to immerse ashes of their ancestor, of the departed ones in the sacred waters of the Ganga. And these priests are the custodians of these records. I was looking for Nain Suk in the registers of the priests. And I was led to a particular Pandit, a particular priest, who I was told had the record of that particular family to which Nain Suk belonged. But he said there is a problem. The problem is that I do have that Bahi. Bahi is the name given to these particular large tomes, but it is sub judice. It is in a court of law. I cannot take it out. So I was greatly disappointed. Later on, however, I stayed there for 4 or 5 days. On the 3rd evening, as far as I recall, the priest showed up in the little guest house where I was staying with a thing wrapped under his, in a rough piece of cloth under his arm, and said, I brought you something to look at. And what it was the Bahi, which he had somehow, probably by more foul means than fair, gotten out of the court. And he said, I know that you are interested in this Bahi, have a look at it. I do not know anything of what it contains. And there I sat, and leaf after leaf I turned, and then suddenly, not knowing what I will find in that particular Bahi, whether Nain Suk is there at all, whether there are other people from the Guler state and so on, and suddenly I turned a page, and there was a 9-line entry in the hand of Nain Suk himself, giving everything that the Pandit must have asked him. I, Nain Suk, of this particular caste, this particular village, on this particular date, son of so-and-so, grandson of so-and-so, great-grandson of so, on my maternal side, the grandchild of so-and-so and so on. And he says, I am here, and then it is towards the end, he said, I am here along with a group of people who have come to immerse the ashes of Raja Balwant Singh of Jasrota in the waters of the Ganga. And not only that, there's a largest single entry of any painter in the records of the priests. Not only that, he must have picked up a brush and just above his own entry, he drew about 1.25 inches high an image of Shiva, who was associated with Haridwar with having borne the weight of the Ganga as he descended from the heavens, along with Parvati, his consort, seated on a tiger skin, and the Ganga emerging from his locks, and Bhagirath, the sage who had begged him to do this, standing with folded hands in front of Shiva and Parvati. All must have been done within a matter of maybe a minute and a half. Here it was, on this page. Everything that we know about Nansuk's life or his ancestry, 9 pages of undoubted authenticity, 9 lines, with a date given, the name of the patron given, his own father, grandfather, great-grandfather's name, maternal grandfather, the name of the Pandit and so on. And then on top of that, a drawing, which is just extraordinary in its quality. Somebody said about Leonardo's drawings that they seem not to have been drawn but breathed upon paper. So delicate are they. Such is the work of Nansuk. That little drawing seems to have been, in that magical moment, breathed upon paper. Have a look at it, enjoy the film. But I very often say to my colleagues when I talk to them about the treasures that lie ahead of us, is a verse from the great poet Ghalib, Urdu poet. He said, "Sad jalwa roobaru hai, jo misga uthaiye." Sad jalwa roobaru hai, jo misga uthaiye, itna hai bas दीदार के सामान लाइए. There are millions of sights for you to see. You just have to lift your eyes, pupils, the pupils of your eye, move them, and all that you need is the desire to see. It's a feast. You're welcome to it. Thank you very much.